All right, I don't want to punish punctuality by holding too long for those who are tardy. Thanks everyone for joining us on this cloudy day in Asheville. Very excited to have you all with us today. My name is Ben Underwood. I'm serving as the chapter president for AFP-WNC this year. Very honored to be serving in that role. And thanks again for joining us and for your continued involvement with AFP. Want to start out today by thanking our sponsors. They are UNC Asheville, our title sponsor for this year, Western Carolina University, our leadership sponsor, AB Tech, an underwriter sponsor, and the Community Foundation of Henderson County, also an underwriter sponsor. The work of the chapter couldn't move forward without the investment of these sponsors, and we deeply appreciate their ongoing commitment. I also want to remind everybody that immediately following Alex's presentation today, there is a members only gathering. Terribly sorry. I did not see that coming. This is live. So the members only gathering is free, but registration is required. I'm just dropping the registration link in the chat right now. We had a nice gathering last month and look forward to some conversation after the event. Next month on May 19th at our usual time, 11:30, we're happy to have Heather Parlier from UNC Asheville presenting to us. Heather is the Vice Chancellor for Human Resources, Institutional Equity, and General Counsel at UNCA. And the title of her talk is Organizational Commitment to Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, something that I know we're all deeply committed to and attentive to. So please join us next month for Heather's talk. I also want to mention that on June 23rd, we are planning a social gathering for AFP from 5:30 to 7. That's Wednesday, June 23rd, 5:30 to 7. More details to come in terms of location, but we are looking forward to gathering in person. We'll do it outside and distanced, but wanted to start dipping our toes in the water of in-person gatherings again, as hopefully we are nearing the end of the pandemic. Also want to mention, you saw this in the slideshow ahead of time, we have an exciting Philanthropy Institute keynote this year. This year, Philanthropy Institute will be only the keynote presented virtually, and our speaker is Vu Le, perhaps best known for his blog Nonprofit AF, but Vu is an expert in fundraising and equity issues. He's going to be presenting a talk called Race, Equity, Access, Diversity, Inclusion, and the Future of Nonprofit and Philanthropy. If that's not an ambitious topic, I don't know what is. So please join us for that. Registration hasn't yet opened, but we're very pleased to offer registration for this event at only $20 for AFP members, $30 for non-members. It promises to be a thrilling event, and very much looking forward to hosting Vu. And with that, I'll wrap up my announcements unless anybody else on the call has anything they'd like to share with the group. Okay, thanks for being here. I will turn it over to Kelly to introduce today's speaker, Alex.
Thank you. Yes, today we are very excited to have Alex Comfort with us. Alex Comfort is CFRE and president of Mountain Nonprofit Solutions, which is a consulting company he formed in 2009 after 23 years as a professional fundraiser. Alex specializes in working with all nonprofits for sustainability, capital campaigns, major gifts, agency and development audits, board development, planned giving, and endowment growth. Additionally, over the past 8 years, he has taught an acclaimed 4-day comprehensive fundraising boot camp, which he teaches at Western Carolina University at Biltmore Park. Alex has served as the Associate Vice Chancellor for Development, Major and Planned Gifts at the University of North Carolina at Asheville for over 11 years. And in his 35 years of development experience, he has also been a Capital Campaign Field Director for National Firm, Director of Development for Covenant House in New Orleans, the Vice President of the LSU Medical Center Foundation in New Orleans, and the Executive Director of the Cradle of Forestry Interpretation Association in Brevard, North Carolina. He was chosen as the Outstanding Fundraising Executive twice first for the AFP chapter of Greater New Orleans, that was in '95, and for the Western North Carolina AFP chapter in 2010. Alex has extensive experience as a teacher, speaker, and writer about development, and for the last 41 years, he has also been an Episcopal priest, serving both full-time and part-time in parish work. His first book, titled Even a Blind Squirrel Finds an Occasional Acorn, Fundraising Tales from the Front Lines, was published in October of 2020. It is available on Amazon, and I can give a firsthand recommendation. It's really fun to read, so go get it. Thank you so much, Alex, for being here today.
Well, thank you, Kelly. That's nice. I've got to tell you that today's topic is how to manage your career in fundraising. And I may not find as much humor as I normally try and find when I give a talk, but anyway, we'll see what I can do. First of all, a couple of ground rules, if you don't mind. For those of you that love it, I'm really sorry. There's no PowerPoint. What I would like you to do is think back, way back in your history where you used to take some notes. If you want to take some notes, I'll tell you that I'm hoping you're going to have about 10 different things to write down, short little nuggets that I hope will be useful to you. If you want more, email me and I'll send you my notes that I'm giving this talk from, and that will kind of tell you where I'm going. All right, today is a time in which I want to talk about you. I want to talk about you as a fundraiser and you as an individual. What I would imagine is that recently you had a new board member call you on the phone, and your comments to them, they said, "How are things going?" And your comments to them sort of sounded like this. I'm glad you asked. I've got the greatest job. The executive director is just amazing. What we do is just off the charts. It is so much fun to work here. The team is fantastic. The board that you've joined is just wonderful, and it just couldn't be better. Okay? That's the outward you that just gave that response. It may not really be the authentic you. And so in order to do this today, I've got to ask you to kind of set aside your role, your with your hat that says Chief Development Officer or whatever it is. And I want you to think about you as a professional, you as a person who's doing a really, really hard job. And I will emphasize that several times today. The truth is that about 5 years ago, and these numbers may be different now, but I don't think they are. About 5 years ago, a national study was made for nonprofit professionals. And what they found is that only 40% of nonprofit professionals in fundraising said that they were a fundraising professional. The other 60% didn't say anything like that. They didn't agree. And with the national statistics running that it takes the average of a person in a job is only 16 months in the United States for a development professional, for a fundraising professional. What is going on? What is the problem? Why are people, changing jobs so fast? So again, I'm going to talk about the fact that you have a constructed self. You started constructing this self very early in your life when you found out that the teacher in the second grade really wanted you on your test to give them exactly what they had said. All right. And you began to construct a personality that is effective in the workplace and in the world. It may be a little different from what your authentic personality is. So just understand that the authentic self and the constructed self are two separate things. I can't get into an awful lot of detail on all these things today because I've got a lot to cover. But just understand there are two yous. And when you talk about what your plan or what your career is going to be like, you need to be very cognizant of the authentic you, what you want to do. So let me ask you this professionally, how's your strategic plan coming? Everybody know what a strategic plan is? Your organization's done a strategic plan, haven't they? It's there on the, it's over there in the corner. Pick it out sometime and take a look at it. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. I'm not talking about your nonprofit strategic plan. I'm talking about yours. Do you have a personal, professional strategic plan for yourself? I'm betting that you don't. I'm betting that you've really not ever thought about what your lifelong plan ought to be as a development person or as a nonprofit professional. And so I'm going to challenge you today to make a strategic plan for yourself for where you want to go. I want you to write it out. I will tell you that I'm a big believer in writing out pros and cons anytime that you do something like this. But I want you to come up with a strategic plan. As I look at my career over the years, it's very different than I thought what it would be, but I never really wrote it down. I didn't give myself a roadmap for where I wanted to go. I don't mean to pick on you, Mark. I'm looking at Mark Goldstein's picture here. And Mark came to me in, what was it, Mark, about 1998, 97, maybe a little later. And he told me about his new company. And even today, here he is many years later, tremendously successful for his company that he knew he wanted to start, and he did it. So, there are some people that know early on what they want to do, and they actually accomplished it. So kudos for that. But here's the next thing I want you to do. I want you to have a plan, but the next thing I want to know is, do you have a career guide, a career coach, what I would call a big brother or a big sister in philanthropy? Many people sort of do this a little bit without even realizing that they're doing it. But I would ask you to find one. You need somebody who can guide you as in your career plan as you walk along, okay? Now, hear this, please. I am not saying that you need to go hire a professional coach or a mentor or, a consultant, all right? I'm not saying that, no. What I'm saying is somebody who may be 5 years ahead of you in the field or more, that you can talk to about the ins and outs of what's going on in your career, okay? Nobody paid, just somebody who can be your big brother or big sister, all right? Everybody else does this in professions, and we need to do it too. And I will tell you that I do this for a number of people right now, and it's all informal. But I think you need to formalize it. Get somebody who will agree to be your big brother or your big sister. Now, do the math with me. That also means that if you've been in the field for 5 years or more, then you need to be doing this for somebody else just coming in, okay? But I think everybody needs somebody that they can talk to. A job is coming, it's open, they think they want it. Should I go for it? Help me think through the reasons I should take it and that sort of thing. So I'm asking you to find a big brother or a big sister in your career. Okay, now a little bit more about developing your plan. Again, your own strategic plan. If I said, are you an introvert or an extrovert? Most people would be able to say what that is. Okay, they'd know. And that's great. There are a lot of tools to understand yourself better. But I'm telling you, it's very important that you know yourself, who you are, and what your comfort zone is. I can remember one time I had an employee that was a wonderful employee. She did a great job, was one of those major gift people. You send her out and she comes back with money. Nothing better. And so we'd been working together about 5 years, and I asked her to come see me one day, and she came in, and I said, I've been noticing something. And she said, what's that? And I said, I've asked you to do this particular thing. And I've asked you about 3 or 4 times to do this. And I've noticed that it never gets done. And she got a little smile on her face. And I said, so I'm thinking that maybe I'd be wise to go ahead and presume it's not going to get done, and I'll just pass it off to somebody else, or I'll do it myself. To which she said, I think that's an excellent plan. All right. I had to laugh because she knew whatever it was, I don't remember what it was, she wasn't going to do that. She wasn't going to come out and tell me she wasn't going to do it. And it was not the kind of thing that I wanted to go to blows with her on it. But the truth is, she knew she didn't want to do that particular job. Okay. And what I'm asking of you is to begin to really understand yourself as to who you are and to what you want to do. You've taken the Myers-Briggs. You want somebody who can absolutely say how to be a super successful fundraiser as an introvert. Then get on to Sandy Reese's blog over in Knoxville. She's a consultant and a good one. She's an absolute total introvert. All right. And I am an off the wall, off the chart extrovert. So it's hard for me personally to relate to this issue. I'm married to one, an introvert, and I know a lot of people. So I look at it this way, and I hope I'm right about this, but anyway, an introvert is somebody who draws strength from being by themselves. An extrovert is somebody who draws strength from being with people. So during the pandemic, it's been quite a challenge for me. But before the pandemic, my wife would look at me with a home office as a consultant often and say, go find some group to be with, and she'd send me out of the house. But the reality as a fundraiser, if you are an introvert, it's going to be a challenge. Remember when I started saying there's a constructed you and an authentic you. Well, the constructed you in any job is a person who is out and doing and involved with people and doing all of that. And the introverts, when they finish that for a day, they can't talk for 2 hours afterwards. They've got to go regroup and re-strengthen themselves, and so just, you have to be aware of that. I ran into a guy one time and learned his take on who we are. And it was that he said there are three kinds of people. There are visionaries, there are problem solvers, and there are maintainers. The visionaries are the people with all the ideas, and they come up with all kinds of things. Okay, they can't handle details, but they can come up with ideas. Well, I'm one of those. All right. I've always required a huge number of people to pull my ox out of the ditch with problems I get in because I have these great ideas and they don't work. All right. I think they're great. Nobody else does sometimes. But the problem solvers are the ones that say, okay, let's look ahead. Everything's connected. We got to be sure that if this happens, then we're going to do that. And they do all the planning and they're ready to do everything. And that's their power zone, is figuring out how to solve problems. Okay. And there are the maintainers. And the maintainers are the people who are able to say, okay, I want a job, I'm going to do it well. Then I'm going to go to the next job and do it well. And by the way, when I go home tonight, I'm not worrying about this job. Okay. Now, before we start saying any of these three are either good or bad, I got to point out that one time I was talking to a physician and I ran this by him and he said, yeah, I'm a maintainer. And I said, really? And he said, yeah, I go into the office every day and I have 15-minute appointments and they're all pretty much the same. And I do the same thing and I do it all day, every day, and it makes me happy. He said, I don't have any ideas. I don't like problems. I just want to take care of my patients and go home. All right. So it's not like it's an intelligence thing. And so what I'd ask you to do is, again, understand who you are and what you like to do. All right. It's terribly important if you're going to know what you're going to do in your job. Now, I'm going to tell you what I think myself is the most important trait in a professional fundraiser. You ready? You all think about what your idea is, and we'll see if we are in agreement. I think the most important personal trait is to be likable. Think about it. You live your whole life being likable by, or being liked by this person or that person. You go out to a new donor, you better be likable. We all have techniques to do this. And those people who are not likable, and you can think of some, guess what? They're not in the field anymore, are they? A lot of them don't last, okay? And we sometimes mistake likability by how charming we are, or how charismatic we are, or how smart we are, how attractive we are. That may be a part of it, but I'll tell you right now that the people who are likable because they are loving, compassionate listeners, and bringing out those around them. That's how you're likable, not by really anything that you are yourself. It is in relationship to other people. If you make them feel good, if you make them feel whole, if you are there, if your name pops up on their cell phone, their smartphone, and they say, "Great, it's Alex calling me," then and they answer it, then that's because you're likable. You know, they want to talk to you. All right. And that's the trait that we need to be as fundraisers. And if we're not, then we need to figure out how to be that way. All right. Now, I'm about to say something to you that is probably going to be surprising, but I'd like you to think about it. And it is this: how mean are you? Intrinsically. My mother used to ask me why she was so mean. I'm not sure I ever figured out the correct answer for the son to that son, from the son to that question. Most of the time I would say, "I don't know, Mother, but you are." I will tell you that in my 40 some odd years of being employed in one job or another, in really 4 different careers, I've probably had about 25 different bosses. And of those 25 people, I would say that about 6 or 7 of them are the meanest people I've ever met. And when I say that, I don't mean that they're not successful, that they're not functional, what have you. But when I get into the back recesses of what's going on in the department, that's when it can come out. And all I can tell you is that if you as a professional are going to be happy and productive and ready to take your next new job in its proper order, then you need to do some research on what the job is going to be like before you get there. You do the best you can, because I have just had some miserable years. Won't name names or tell you where, but through the years I've had some very hard times when my job was to be likable, but I was always in the doghouse, or I could never do anything good, or everything I did was criticized. And it's a tough way to be. It also, I say this because a lot of people think that in order to get up the chain of command, that the higher you go, the meaner you need to be. And there are, what shall I say? My experience is in, a lot of it is in medical school education, medical education and undergraduate education. Big New Orleans. It was 4,000 employees at the medical center, and so as people got brought in, you began to realize that there was somehow, almost by osmosis, they were being evaluated for their ability to be mean. Now, folks, there's a difference between being tough and being mean. But yeah, every job I've ever had, I was the guy that had to fire people. I don't know why, even in the Air Force. I don't know why that was the way it was, but they'd say, Comfort, you go do that. And so all I can say is that keep those two things separated in your mind as you think about things that you're going to do, and that you think about where you want to go. All right, so the next thing I want you to do is I want you to go to the end of your career. All right, I'm 72 and a half. Pick that date if you want to. What do you want to look back on? What is it that you need to accomplish? And that's what I want you, as you do your own personal plan, I want you to start, if you will, at the end. Because you need to know where you want to go or where you need to go in order to understand how you want to get there. All right. So when you start to do that, the first thing I want you to tell me, or at least think about, is how much do you need to be in charge? Do you need to be in charge of something? Is that important to you? Are you expecting of yourself particular things in life? You want to make a lot of money? Well, then don't be a fundraiser. But if you want to maximize your financial professional as a fundraiser, then you need to think about that, because there's a very definite way to do that, and there's a very definite way not to do that. But one of the things is that you have to decide, do I want to be the boss? And yes, you'll talk to a lot of executive directors in particular who will tell you, oh my God, I never knew what this was like. A couple of years ago, I was talking to a director of development in a maybe 400,000 budget nonprofit social services. And I said, have you thought about being an executive director? And she looked at me and she said, absolutely not. I'm happy where I am. I want to do what I'm doing right now. I don't want to be in charge. I don't want the pressure. I don't want to deal with a board. And I thought, fantastic. You know, this is great. But the reality is most of us have to think about that as we go along. And as one who really had a need to be in charge, I finally went and I found something where I went and could be in charge. It was fascinating. Then I became a consultant. Now I'm in charge. But the bottom line is there are a lot of people that don't really like it once they get up there. But you need to know whether or not you need to be in charge. Okay. So do you, and so you need to think about the roles. Any of you that don't realize how many different jobs there are in development, get on LinkedIn and start. It's hilarious. You start getting all these people, and so it's, you know, they come into your network, but read their job advancement. I have 1,400 people that I'm in a connection with in LinkedIn, and I've done a lot of work looking at their job progression. And, you know, one of the things that I'm trying to decide is whether or not I want to take this material and actually write it up, but into a book or something like that. But anyway, it's, you know, that you learn things. One of the things that you learn by looking at other people and also through life, and remember this, it is very hard to go from the level that you are now to a higher level in the same organization. Isn't it nice to think you could be identified for your talent and that they're going to promote you? But there are a lot of forces that work against this. And one of the forces that works against it is that friendly executive recruiter who's talking to you. Now, if you haven't had that experience, you will at some point. But the chances are that you may misread this person when you talk to them. So let me tell you something straight. The headhunter, the executive recruiter, is not your friend. Okay? You're not going to be able to tell that from them because they're going to be the nicest person that you'll ever talk to. You're not going to really get it from them directly because they're going to be advocating for you. But what is their job? Their job, first and foremost, is to build their firm, not just get a paycheck on you. And in order to build the firm, they don't want to hire anybody right around the institution. They want to go across the country and find some fantastic person with perfect credentials, bring them in, and then, you know, it's going to be a great fit and it's going to be wonderful. They don't want to hire somebody right from down the hall. So I could tell a lot of stories about this, but the bottom line is just understand that if you happen to be that person that they're going to bring in, you know, that'll be great. But if you just trust them too much, you may go down the garden path when you really don't have a chance. So be very careful when you deal with these folks. You can, and so let me talk about the jobs a minute. All right. Number one, you can wind up being a consultant. I'll talk a little bit about that. Kim's on the line. She can talk about it too. It's a different kind of role. Kim Hinkleman is a great consultant now after a great career. But anyway, you can be a consultant. You can be the executive director of a nonprofit. You can be the head of advancements. You can be the president of the college. You can be in major gifts. You can be a grant writer. You can do stewardship, donor stewardship. There are more jobs in this field than I could even imagine when I started 35 years ago. It's amazing. And so there are jobs for the authentic you. All right. So you got to find them. Now, the bigger the organization, the more of those jobs are gonna be there. When I was at UNC Asheville, when I started, it was me and a part-time alumni director, you know, and the vice chancellor had some background too. That's not the way it looks now. It didn't look like that when I finished either. But what I'm saying is that you don't ever know going in exactly how many people are going to be there, but you can chart your career based on where you want to go. So you got to figure that out. Now, I would urge you again to do lots of research, because as you look at other organizations, you can kind of figure out where you might fit or where you don't fit in. I'm talking to somebody right now in Asheville who has one job in Asheville in mind that she wants. There's only one. And all I can tell you is I've never found that kind of focus to work. All right. Maybe it will, but I think she's going to be disappointed in that. Think about your career and the things that you have to do. And I'll just make a few examples. If you like, if you want to be an annual fund director, that means most of the time you're going to be behind your computer, coming up with emails or social media appeals or phone bank stuff, doing various kinds of materials and all of that. All right. It's not the get out and travel job if you want to do that. Okay. If you want to be an annual fund manager, if you want to do events, number one, God love you, because nobody else does. But if you want to be an event manager, then I hope you love planning big parties. If you love planning big parties, be an event manager, and you got lots of people who will employ you. If you want to do lots of face-to-face with people, then get into major gifts and campaigns and plan giving. That's what you do there, and so that is what you're going to do in those. Plan giving also comes up with a lot of legal stuff. If you really love the legal stuff, then you may want to get into plan giving. I'll make a couple of comments here. I have throughout my career been amazed at how many attorneys are miserable with their careers are. And so what they do is they join the nonprofit world. Yay, that'll be fun. And so they join the nonprofit world and they either become a plan giving director, which is not a bad thing to do, because as a plan giving director, everybody else is afraid of what you do and they won't bother you. Yeah, they, and so, it's not a bad deal because of that. But the ones that become fundraisers or get into nonprofit management, I got to tell you, almost everyone doesn't last more than 5 years before they go back to being an attorney. Why? Well, if I have to deal with this much hassle, then I might as well be paid for it. And, that's great. I don't blame them. But anyway, if you are really interested, then do the research on the kinds of jobs and find then where they are, and then you deal with perhaps the biggest thing ever. Thanks, Wayne. But I just saw your note. But the bottom line is, what was I going to say? All right. Well, I know I'll get back to this. Here's what I think is the most important skill in any professional fundraiser if they are interested in having a successful career going as high up the ladder as they want. What do you think is the trait that is most important for a fundraising professional? And that is major gifts. That's the thing. I don't care how high you get, you are going to have a portfolio of major gift prospects. And that's the thing that I would suggest to you. The more you want to go up the line, get a higher paying salary and that sort of thing. Now, let me talk just a little bit about kinds of jobs to have, because they tend to come in sectors. The arts in fundraising is its own deal. All right. I was asked to be a director of development for an arts museum, a large art museum in a major city. And I went and interviewed for it, and I realized, no, nothing negative here in general about that kind of job, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. It was not my thing to stare at paintings and explain why one painting was worth $2 million, another one was only worth $500,000. I didn't have the ability to do that. I would have been miserable. And so understand that the arts is different. Environment right now, environmental nonprofit work, some people are in that and just adore it, and that's their thing. Animals, same thing, if that's your thing. Then you've got the whole human services kinds of nonprofits, and many of us have been involved with those. And there are a lot of those from which to choose. But the truth is that most of those are sort of generalist roles, but some people are not really that excited about those things. And then when you start saying, okay, how am I going to make more money? Then where do you go? The two places that you generally go are hospitals or higher education of some sort, or even, private academies, high school advancement. The money's better, there are more positions, there are more things to do. And so most people, I will tell you, right now are very nervous about hospitals, because hospitals right now have a tendency to change overnight. Ask all the folks who are working for Mission Healthcare. All right, boom, they're a nonprofit. Next day, they're a for-profit. You're all out of your jobs. Okay, so many people looking at hospitals right now with a little nervousness. They're highly paid, they're important work, it's very fulfilling work, don't get me wrong. And so I'd say that for education, which is the field that employs the most nonprofit professionals in the United States, there are a lot of different jobs, there's a lot of advancement possibility, and so for a lot of people, that's the direction they go. Okay. I will tell you that I mentored a person one time into becoming a fundraiser, and her whole desire in life, we were in New Orleans at the time, She wanted to live in Vermont and be an advancement professional for Dartmouth. Now, for those of you who know the geography up there, it's only 4 miles to the Vermont border, okay? That's what she wanted to do. So she got a job up north, and that led her to know somebody in her alumni base at the school she was there who was head of advancement at Dartmouth. Bingo. Hey, here we go. So before you knew it, she was a major gifts officer at Dartmouth, living in Vermont. Hey, the manna land is here. You know, it's perfect. This is great. After about 6 months, I got a phone call. She said, I'm a little troubled. I said, why? She said, well, I'm finding that I'm not very happy. I said, why not? She said, well, I am a major gifts officer with a portfolio of 150 prospects. And the only thing I can do is ask for improvements to the golf course. That was the level of specialization at Dartmouth at the time. They had 200 development professionals. Okay. So I'm just saying, again, even with that, be careful with what you do. And really, the thing that I hear most as I talk to people around here is, I'm glad to look at another job, but there's one thing that's beyond anything. I said, what's that? I can't move. Going to stay here in Asheville. Okay, great. All for it. Just understand, as you make your career plan, make sure that you know if that's the way that's what your intention is. It hasn't been my intention, but anyway, do that. Okay, quickly through the rest of this. You're going to need education. You're going to find that you need a 4-year degree. If you're aiming to be in charge of something, I think you're going to need a master's degree. And the good news is you got a bucket full of those to choose from now. Didn't used to be this way. You couldn't get a degree in fundraising when I started out, but the master's in public affairs is the traditional nonprofit master's, but now there are all kinds of things that are available. And the beauty is you can do them online. All right, you don't have to be in residence. You can work that out. So if you want to get a master's degree in some kind of nonprofit field, you can do it online. So I would urge you to do that. But anyway, you need to fill out your holes that you have in your experience with education if you can. Now, I'll also tell you that I do think everybody needs some broad development experience in the whole field. And then, you know, just if you want to know more about plan giving, for example, be careful what you go to, because you're going to go to something you won't understand a word they say for the entire time. Get something that really is on your level, and be careful with that. All right. I have very strong feelings about public speaking. I don't know that I'm going to get to my little, I have about 5 points to make on public speaking. You can spend a lot of money. There are lots of good training, what have you. If you're not a good public speaker, then it's really going to limit your career. So you need to work on that in terms of what you learn and how you move. And Wayne Olson was the first one that I ever heard say this in a breakout deal he did when he was keynoting PI here in Asheville. And at the hour-long session, he said, you need to begin to teach. Now, that may be terrifying to you, but I would say to you, you need to do this. You need to figure out what you can do a class on, what you can teach a class on in our field. And then you need to start doing it. And then you need to start broadening that. And you need to start doing more and more teaching. As the extrovert that I am, I'm never happier than when somebody gives me a microphone. Okay, everybody knows that about me. I don't think it's a surprise. Go ahead and laugh, Amanda. Thank you. But the bottom line is that's my thing. All right. So I've done a lot of that over the years. I've also done a lot of pro bono work with other agencies. When they come to you and say, would you serve on our board? Please say no. They don't want you on their board. They want help with their fundraising program. So what you do is say no, and if it's what I've said is no, I'm a terrible board member. You would hate me. I would drive you crazy. But what I will do is just now that I'm working at this place, I'll help you a little bit with your fundraising. I've done that ever since I hit New Orleans in 1988 after being a national consultant. And so I've helped nonprofits along the way. What does it lead to now? Okay, I can be a consultant. I've pretty much seen everything there is to see. And that's just because I've felt useful doing that. And often I was able to do a whole lot better in one luncheon session with a nun in New Orleans that I could do in my own job. So, it's fulfilling in that way. All right. Get through the rest of it. All right. Get a job. How to select a job. Find a job that you want. What's the passion? But ask yourself the question, will I want to be there in 5 years? Because if the answer is no, then don't do it. All right. I don't care how miserable you are where you are. If you don't want to go somewhere and stay for 5 years, don't do it. That's what you do. Interview past incumbents. Research everything you can. Read the silences when you call people. And I call past incumbents of the jobs before I go in there. One time I had somebody come to me who was the incumbent, and he just insisted that he'd take me out for coffee. And he told me what the reality was going to be like. And by God, was he right. It was very helpful in a tough situation. All right. When to leave a job. How do you know when to leave? You need to leave your job. All right. This is what I was going to do for a whole hour, but I've expanded it. So there are three or four things. There are three things in particular I want you to know. Leave your job when a great opportunity comes along. All right, you're doing fine. Everything the headhunter calls, blah, 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 blah. They're going to offer you a lot more money. You're going to come to Asheville, which is a great place. I want to live there. It's a great place you're going to. The institution's great. The nonprofit's great. So that's the first time you know when to leave. That's the easy time. All right. Now, the other two have to do with the emotional and the intellectual you. All right. The first one is what I call the Sunday night dread. When do you hit that moment during the weekend when you dread going back to work on Monday? Sunday night? Okay, I can understand that. Sunday dinner? Sunday afternoon? When you wake up Sunday morning and you start dreading going to work the next day? When you get down into Sunday morning as your dread starts, I will tell you it's time to start looking. One of my colleagues told me about a time, she's a pretty senior person, and she went to PI and she saw somebody in AFP that she hadn't seen in a while. And the other person said, "Hey, how you doing?" And she didn't know this person all that well. She immediately began to sob. And just sobbed and sobbed and sobbed. And she said, that was when I knew I needed to leave my job. Okay. I'm not kidding. It'll kill you if you don't. So if you get to the point with your job where you're feeling that way, you've got to leave it. All right. The other thing is the intellectual you. Read your signs. Are you being demoted? The day came at UNC Asheville. Here I'm the major gift guy. And somebody came to me and they said, well, we made a decision that all associate vice chancellors won't be invited to the foundation meetings anymore. Really? Okay. That was it. That's when I knew. And I'd get a bigger title and more money, and I was getting demoted over on the side, and I could read it. All right. So watch it very carefully, because if you see the handwriting on the wall, and there are AFP members that I have told over the years, I said, you need to leave now. Well, things are still going along. I said, no, you're going to be out of a job. And when you leave your job, or when you want to get a new job, the one thing you want to do is still have a job. one of the people that I knew one time, or one of my colleagues said that he went to a university president, and he went in and the guy looked at him and said, "So you're an unemployed beggar, is that right?" Now, this person wound up telling that university president to go to hell, which was great. But the bottom line is you need to have a job in order to get another job. It doesn't always work that way, but that's preferential. Okay. Now, just a few things about searches, because I don't have time to get into all this, but there are some things that you need to do. Number one, when you're looking for a job and you're antsy and you want to find out what's going on, don't call anybody. It's their timetable, not yours. And so if you come across as being too desperate, they'll toss you to the side. So just understand, don't make the call. All right. When you get asked, what are your weaknesses? Everybody know the correct answer? The correct answer is, I have an awful lot of trouble leaving my job at the job. I worry about it all the time. I think about it all the time. And I know I shouldn't do that. They love to hear that. All right. So that's your weakness. Got it? I'll also say, be very careful about your sense of humor. I've had my sense of humor cost me a couple of jobs because it came across wrong in an interview and cost me the job. Okay. Lesson learned. Don't try and be particularly funny. They don't care about that. All right. If you're told you're at the top of our list, we've got 3 people coming in. Do you want to be, which order would you like to be? You want to go last. All right. You don't want to go first. You go first, and the people who are looking to find some blood and take power, they'll find a way to torpedo you. You want to go last. Yeah, I can talk a lot about that. When you do your job, you need to network as much as you can, and not just for your institution. I don't have time to get into this, but Chamber of Commerce, United Way, civic clubs, anything that you can do, you need to be out there in the community and be known by everybody. All right. So just if you go to it and go to as many other special events that other people have, but please don't bring your materials for your annual fund to pass them out at somebody else's special event. Please don't do that. Sorry, Ben, but I had to tell one chancellor not to do that one time. He was a female. All right. So anyway, I'm out of time. I'm not going to be able to have time to do my quick thing on how to be a great public speaker, but call me sometime and we'll talk it over. 2 things I want you to do. I want you to find yourself a big brother or big sister in your field. And number 2, I want you to take the time to write down your career strategic plan and look at it all the time. Okay, with that, I'll quit. Thank you all very much. I'll take questions if anybody has them.
So Alex, I have a question.
Yes.
Of course.
Yes. Oh, father, former fundraiser.
That's right. That's right. So you talked about it being in a situation, knowing it's time to leave a situation when it has become obvious that you as an individual cannot be successful in that situation.
Okay.
They've given you an office with no phone and said, wait here till we call you.
Yeah.
I'd say there's also a situation in which one can tell that the fundraising program is not going to be successful.
Yep.
And that might be a time to leave too. And that looks like a lack of strategic vision from the executive, an unwillingness to trust board members or staff with helping to create that vision, an unwillingness to engage in the process of fundraising, maybe a lack of funding for the operation, the fundraising operations, where we might be able to stay in a position, y'all might be able to stay in a position where like that for years, but the fundraising will never be successful.
Right.
And that can really be unsatisfying.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Really
Yeah.
good point. And I will say, I've met people in that situation who were really fairly happy doing just that.
Uh-huh.
They accepted that they weren't ever gonna, break any records, or that the grants were they're too dependent on grants, or they just got a new earned income, or maybe they're sitting on land where, Ingalls decided to build or something like that. And other income started coming in, but still, I do think there is a professional imperative to leave the ground as fertile as you can for the next person.
Mhm.
And so that's what I've tried to do in those situations.
Mhm.
Thank you, Jay.
I hate to cut the Q&A short, but we're going to need to transition over to our post event, which you're all welcome to join us in. I posted the link in the chat. So if you didn't register, go ahead and do that quickly, and we'll see you there in just a minute. Thanks, everyone.